Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. I am sitting here today with Rosie J. Pova. Rosie is an award-winning, multi-published children's book author, poet, writing coach, and speaker whose acclaimed picture books have been featured in the New York Times and recommended by Parents Magazine, and who inspires young readers and mentors, aspiring authors, through school visits and her picture book mastery course. Rosie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here, and we have a lot of interesting ground to cover. But before we dig into it, we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which cartoon character do you resonate with the most and why?
I would say probably Belle because she's around books and she reads a lot, and yeah, that would be me.
I like that. Big library. So you used to like to go to the library a lot then?
Well, as a kid, yes, a little bit, as much as I could. It was different where I grew up in Bulgaria, but yes, as I had some books that I would read over and over. Yeah, that was my escape. So music and books, and Belle is all into that. So I definitely identify with her.
I love that. I love that. So just sliding into this a little bit easy now. What is procrastination to you, Rosie? How would you define it?
Procrastination, well, we all have it in some degree and we struggle with it. I believe most people struggle with it. Just putting things off, not for whatever reason, just not doing the action, not doing your to-do list on anything small or big, really. And we all have our reasons and we struggle with it, but it's a big thing, I think, for everyone.
And now that thank you for sharing that. Now that my audience is already rolling their eyes because they know exactly what question is coming next. And the question is, the saying goes that writing is about 98% procrastination and 2% actually doing it. How true is that in your case?
Yeah, there's some truth to that because a lot of the process happens, in our mind. We're brainstorming ideas and plot lines and characters, and sometimes we're just waiting for inspiration and waiting for the right time. But yeah, a lot goes on behind the scenes where we're not actually sitting and actively writing, but just thinking about the story and letting it marinate if something's not working, or we're trying to come up with a new idea, and all of that is work. I wouldn't discount that. It is work, but the active writing comes in later. Some people wait until they have fully fleshed out idea and story in their head before they actually put it on paper or type it on the computer. So yeah, that's still part of the process. So there is some truth to that. Definitely.
And we all know that there's no 100% cure all or silver bullet for it. But what's been your secret sauce to overcoming procrastination?
Well, I've tried many things, many tricks. So sometimes, things work and sometimes they don't. But so recently I learned some kind of new studies that explain some of it, why it's not, entirely our fault maybe, but when we take good care of ourselves, we give ourselves the best chance of not procrastinating. And one of the studies showed that when we're sleep deprived, we kind of like our willpower diminishes. And so we're more prone to, giving it like, oh, I don't feel like doing that, or I'll do something else and maybe I'll wait and maybe it's not the right time. So we kind of get away with that. And if we're not, yeah, if we're sleep deprived. So my tip would be get a good night's sleep. The other thing I noticed is, and what they say is the right thing to do, is get some protein in the morning because you need that brain power. Sometimes I would drink like coffee after coffee, and then at some point I'm like really starving and my brain's not working. And of course, I'm not going to be able to focus on the tasks when that happens. So just be proactive, get some protein. And I actually, yeah, thought about this a little bit. So I kind of came up with 5 tips trying to be helpful because noticed what your show is about. So I'm like, procrastination is going to be a big thing. So my second thing is I go outdoors. Like even if it's for like 2 minutes, I have a balcony here. And if I get in the sun for like even 2 minutes, that kind of energizes me. And just the view, the outdoors, it just gives you a different perspective. And then when I come into the house, I'm kind of ready to go. So that would be another little tip. I would say start with the most difficult task first, like in the morning when you're fresh and you're, kind of more productive. And if like, and give yourself rewards. I tend to do that if I'm like, oh, what, I don't feel like it, but if I do this, like if I complete it, then I get to, do something nice. And if all else fails and if you feel like super unmotivated, I would say try to connect the task to something bigger, like your vision, your mission, your big goal, and that you're working toward, right? So that could be helpful. And then trick your mind. Say to yourself, like, I'm just going to work on this for 10 minutes. But once you get started, I usually find it that I keep going. I don't want to stop. And then I kind of, complete the task. So those would be my tips.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing those. Going outside, getting in the sun, getting that protein or anything in the morning that's going to keep you running. I love that one. The 10-minute rule, tricking yourself into doing it. I like that one too. It's kind of like, oh, well, I'm halfway here anyway. Might as well keep going.
Exactly. Actually, speaking of the protein, like if you're busy, you have a busy morning, and I get that. You don't have time for like a big meal and breakfast with scrambled eggs and all the things. Just get like what I'm drinking here, and that's called protein coffee. I recently discovered that. So that's another trick I'm starting to use, like the protein coffee. It just has protein powder and takes like a really good shake. And so that gives you, it has like 15, I think 15 grams of protein right there. So that's a good way to, you know, get through your morning.
Definitely love that. Love that. Thank you so much for those tips. Um, being a writing coach, do you ever deal with procrastination from your clients at all?
Yes, like I said, we're all different, so we all have it in some degree, but it's good to have a deadline though, that they kind of struggle with that, but then they come work with me. And because we have a deadline, because we have a meeting, same goes for me. Like I have to be ready. I have to be prepared with my critiques and my feedback and all the things that we're going to discuss. And same for them, even if they're super busy and would have usually like let it go and put it off, they can't because we have a meeting, right? So they have to get ready. And a lot of them have said that accountability is a big part of the coaching program that they really loved. Because I also push them to, be better and do better, and they push themselves more when they know they have to show up and be accountable. So that's how it's working in their favor too.
No, I love that. Accountability is such a big thing, right? Because, well, I'm not going to open that can of worms here, but the next question after that is, why can you be accountable to other people but not to yourself? I'm not going to open that huge one right now, that's for sure. But I love that you have that in your program as well. Being such a successful author and putting out so many of these books, what do you think is the biggest challenge when you're setting out to maybe putting?
There's so many challenges along the way. From just early stages, starting with the idea and developing the story and going through all the revisions. It could take a long time because even though those, some people think, oh, it's a picture book, it's a children's book, it's a very, very short text. How can this be difficult, right? Anyone can do it. It's not a big deal, but it is because that simplicity, when people read it and it kind of looks simple, behind it is like it's like craft. It's that skill that makes it look effortless. But revision's a big part of it, and that could take time. Even if you wrote the story in 10 minutes, like you could be spending months revising it and then finding a publisher. I'm talking about traditional publishing. I'm not talking about self-publishing where anyone can put out anything they want, right, on Amazon. But with traditional publishing, there's the gatekeepers, there's the agents and publishers. And so then the submission process starts, and that could be painful too. There could be a lot of rejections, a lot of waiting, a lot of wondering, and until you find the home for the book and you find the right publisher for it. So, and the production of the book, believe it or not, takes about 2 years too. So even if you got a contract today, the book is not going to be in the bookstore, next week or next month. It's going to take about a couple of years to for the production process and for the book to be released. So that's a long. We need a lot of patience, as you can see. Sometimes maybe procrastination is linked to that because it's like, oh, what's the hurry? Like it's not going to be out, next month. So but it does take time. So all of that, even pairing you with an illustrator, a lot of people think that we kind of have to choose our illustrator or we hire them. That's not true. The publisher is responsible for the illustrator, so you kind of wonder, will I like their style and will I like my characters when I see them? So all of these things to get to a final product and have a book in your hand, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of patience required too.
I love that, thank you for explaining that, and I will, like, just go back and, go back to where you said that, making a children's book is easy. My answer to everybody is, and I understand the, um, the psychology behind it, but, I like to challenge those people just a little bit. If it's so easy, how come you aren't doing it, I'll be the first to admit, I've thought about it, but there's just so much nuance to it, right? That, and I specifically meant like picture books because people tend to read those rather than read big books. But let me ask you, you've written you've written quite a few books. But how did you know when was that pivotal moment in your history when you knew that you were on the right path, that you wanted to be a writer and you wanted to help people write and be a speaker?
Yeah, that's a great question. And well, I can tell you that I've always been a writer. When I was little, I was writing a lot, like poems and short stories and essays. And that was my favorite thing that excited me the most when I was going to school. So literature and foreign languages, that was my thing. So yeah, like I said, I've always been a writer, but I didn't necessarily think that I would be an author one day. I thought I might be a journalist. That was at one point a career that I wanted to pursue. But yeah, I hadn't thought about being an author. And then once I moved to North America, and started my family and had my first kid, and I was reading to her, and then that kind of love for picture books reignited in me, because I remember loving fairy tales as a kid, and just being obsessed, especially with Cinderella. And to your question, I didn't pick Cinderella at the time. Maybe I should have picked Cinderella because I was obsessed with that. I had a vinyl that I played a million times. I knew it by heart. It was just the good old days. And I didn't have a lot of picture books in my house for whatever reason. We had a lot of adult books, but we didn't have a lot of picture books at the time. So, but that fairy tale, I was obsessed. And so, and once I started reading, books to my child who was a toddler at the time, kind of reignited that passion. And I thought, well, I can write my own stories, right? And try to come up with something. And then it was in English, right? My English is my fourth language. Excuse. It wasn't easy. Like it wasn't the easiest thing to start writing in English. I went to a French language school. I've written in, yeah, my native language was Bulgarian and then Russian and then French. I wrote in French. I even had poems that I forgotten that I wrote in French. So, yeah, it was a long journey, but then it was like, oh, okay, let's write in English too. Why not? And then I started and I couldn't stop. It was just that passion. Like I couldn't stop writing children's stories. And I thought, how do I publish those? And then it was like, I have no clue. I had no idea what to do. So I went through a lot of ups and downs and tried self-publishing, and just out of impatience and out of, this passion, and then learned a lot, realized that's not the route I wanted to take, and focused on traditional publishing. But that meant, querying agents, and that's hundreds and hundreds of queries and hundreds of rejections and just disappointments, until I kind of had this idea that maybe I should be doing more, like improving my craft. And that's when things started to change and turn around. And I started getting interest from publishers and agents, and I was able to finally break through traditional publishing. But so, and then fast forward to like when the pandemic happened, I was asked to teach a class. Everything went online, right? And I was asked to teach a class on children's writing. And I'm like, okay, I always thought I wanted to teach others so that they don't make the same mistakes and they don't go through all the struggles that I went through. But I had no idea how to teach online, right? I didn't have a course, I didn't have anything. I didn't even know how to work with Zoom. So that was a challenge. But I said yes and created the course and then started mentorships and saw my students just getting success story after success story. I just learned three other success stories of my clients getting an agent. It was like so exciting and so uplifting to see other people succeed with the material that I teach. And so I continue doing it and still do it and then I enjoy it. That was a long answer to your question.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to hear your point of view on this because, I have a daughter, and occasionally we read books to her. But how do you think the landscape has changed? I'm talking specifically in about the last 10 years in terms of children's books and just topics that are out.
Yeah, it has changed a lot in terms of, yeah, publishing, like the publishing model. Stories that have been published like, yeah, like you said, 10, 15, 20 years ago, are no longer publishable. Like the writing has changed, the format has changed, and topics also. Like now you can have anything, like any topic under the sun reflected in children's books, like in picture books, which is a great thing. Even like nonfiction has expanded a lot in picture books, and even adults are sometimes learning from nonfiction picture books because why would you read like a book this thick when you can get this exciting information or find out about a person's life in a short time with a picture book, and it's so enjoyable to read, and with the pictures you have the visuals and it's a real pleasure. So picture books have changed and they're evolving, they're expanding, and I love what they're doing in the world. So it's, yeah, I kind of have a soft spot for picture books as you can say.
I definitely love that. And you mentioned in the traditional publishing process, do they usually do like online versions of those as well, or are they just print?
No, the print. They at one point they thought that we'll kind of um discontinue the actual physical book, but that's hasn't been the case with picture books because kids and parents want the real experience. They're snuggling together and they're holding the book and they're reading it and experiencing the physical product. So picture books are still printed in hardcover and that's how they're consumed. And I love that.
And what's been your favorite baby? Your
Of my books? I get that asked that a lot at school visits. There's always that question, which one is your favorite? And it's really hard to say because, and I tell students too, all of my books have something special from my experience in them, whether that's about my kids or inspired by my kids or, just honoring my grandparents or my own journey of struggling and making mistakes and learning the hard way and then learning to be to accept failures as part of the journey and all of that. So every single story, every single book has something from my life, from my experience that is special to me. And usually the latest book is my favorite. And then I move on to the next one and that becomes my favorite. And then the newest one. And so they all have a special place. But yeah, I can't just say just the one.
No, I love that. Okay, it was a bit of an unfair question, but I figure they're not people, so you can pick one. And it's great that you use that as almost like the inspiration from your own life as well too. Most writers, when they're writing, they often have deep reflective experiences and they learn things about themselves. What do you think is the most surprising thing you've learned from yourself from creating one of these books?
Most surprising thing is that I can find it in myself to be consistent and to be patient because I'm naturally kind of a impatient person. I want everything to happen like right now. But so that was a surprising thing, and also to let go of any ideas, any that I'm really that keep me stuck. I've had that at the beginning. Like I'm set on something and then that's my vision, that's my idea, but then I learned to let go and actually how that makes it so much better, makes the experience so much better. And I open up the doors to really better things that I haven't thought of, even in terms of working with illustrators, right? Maybe I had a specific vision for the type of art that I enjoy or the type of character that I have. And then it's a total surprise. It's completely probably 180 of what I thought, it would be. And it kind of takes me by surprise. And then I had to like kind of sleep on it. And it turns out to be a much better experience and outcome than what I originally thought it would be. So that's what I learned about myself, to just let go and trust and open to collaborations and surprises. And that could be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's actually, yeah, good.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, just going back to the publishing aspect for a minute. I've been in a few bookstores recently, and while my daughter's not young anymore, I have seen the kinds of books that are being published, and I have to wonder sometimes at the topics. I mean, there's everybody poops, everybody farts. It seems like there's this general degrading that there's not really a ton of effort or thought put into these new children's books. Do you find that when people come to your class that they just want to put out something like for shock value, or are they actually trying to, create stories?
Well, yeah, they're trying to write what they're passionate about and write stories from the heart. And it's not to say that they might be sometimes maybe a humorous, quirky story, but then again, we want kids to read, and this is what kids enjoy. Sometimes they don't want a lesson, they don't want a lecture in a picture book, or if that's the case, they would stay away from those books. It's really, we're trying to grab their attention. With screens nowadays, it's just easier to watch something. So we're trying to get them back into reading and develop that love for books. So they enjoy that, and they would gravitate towards those books. They would read them over and over. So there's nothing bad with that. There's books for every reader, right? And like I said, topics of all kinds. So even those humorous ones, the quirky humors and potty humor and all of that, kids laugh about that and they enjoy it. And I would say, why not? There's this audience for those books as well. So why deprive the kids from that experience? They do make those jokes, right? So why not have a book about that? So it's all good. But yeah, people would write whatever they write. Some are more heartfelt and lyrical and deeper issues and meaningful stories and layered stories. And some are just quirky and funny just for entertainment. And that's good too. So totally. Even those books are appreciated.
No, I love that. And it goes into my next question too, because in my own search, I recall, is there a difference in publishers when you're trying to make like a pop-up book or like more of an interactive? I don't know if you're familiar with The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It was
Yes, of course.
one of my favorite books as a kid. It's got the little holes in it, and you
Yeah.
count and you yeah. In terms of publishing those, do they still publish those even?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Those are the novelty books, and they're board books. So they're more geared towards the toddlers, that age group, because they want to have that interaction. So yeah, the flip up and the all kinds of different shapes and the interactive books, they're big with toddlers. But those are the board books. So that's a very young age. And then the next category is the picture books, which they still have to be interactive, like have their grab their attention with the story and the illustration and all that, but they're not as interactive, not the novelty kind. So yes, but they're definitely getting published for sure.
And do you ever have an issue with inspiration at all, like writer's block, which seems to happen to most of us? I mean, hey, it happens to me when I go to write an email sometimes.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't stress about it too much. I'm whenever I don't write every day, that's for sure. Like I don't sit and write every day. I might wait until yeah, I get motivation or inspiration, because if I have like I'm not in a rush to produce any stories. I have a huge body of work. So, and not every story we write, if we try to force it, not every story we write is going to be published and publishable. And that's okay. Some stories, and I've had a lot of those, are just practice stories. They're needed to develop your craft and to like explore what you want to write about. And I have no regrets about those stories that have helped me develop my craft. But I don't write every day. I wouldn't say, like I say, I feel blocked and I need to write something. So I don't put that pressure on myself. And yeah, I don't think people should put pressure on themselves and call it a writer's block and make a big deal of it, because the more you stress about it, the more blocked you're gonna become, and then it's like, oh, that's a big issue. So it doesn't have to be like that.
I like that. Because there is so much pressure right now to, well, there's various different pressures, right? There's pressure to perform, there's pressure to have a good topic, there's pressure to create something that's engaging. Oh, but don't make it too long. Oh, but don't make it too short.
Mhm.
In that arena, we've got a lot of AI tools now. Where do you sit personally about using AI tools to create these kinds of books?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We can't use AI for creative writing. And first of all, it's not fair, it's not acceptable. It's not what publishers or reputable publishers will publish even. So AI generated writing is not copyrightable, and you can't copyright that. You can get it published traditionally. Like even Amazon, I think if they're running a test and if they detect that it's AI generated, they take it down. Like even if you decide to self-publish, like I don't think that goes well with Amazon even, but absolutely and definitely not in traditional publishing. It's now in contracts to you. It's not ethical to even generate art with AI, because it kind of steals from, artists who don't get paid for it and to generate images and use in picture books. And this is becoming a big issue. And I see that a lot in Facebook groups, writers groups. Everybody is putting out a book that is probably mostly AI generated text and definitely AI generated art, and it's just offensive to the legit creators and publishers and agents who are working hard to produce beautiful, wonderful products based on human creativity. So definitely it's a no, big no for doing that. Anyone who's tempted to do it, just don't. That's just unethical and a lazy way of approaching it. Write your own stories, use your own brain, and definitely don't use AI images, because, again, I explained it, but yeah, it's definitely against all of that. It's a big no.
I agree. Not to mention that the AI generated images are kind of creepy. But
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's a whole different, issue. But so don't try to do that, and just be respectful. If you want to be respected as an artist and a creator, just do the right thing. That's what I'm going to say. But like I said, it's in contracts now, so you can't even like. Definitely, it's not going to go through the traditional publishing route. And as far as self-publishing, again, just be careful what you're putting out there and how that sits with you, and your values.
but it also kind of makes the space kind of harder to get into, right? I have no idea about the children's aspect of the world, but I know on traditional side, like adult nonfiction side, it's pretty heavy. Is the competition as heavy on the children's side as well?
Oh, yes, competition is extremely heavy. There's a lot of competition. So just a few of the stories that are submitted each year get picked for publication. So yeah, it's a fierce competition, but that's what you need to strive. You need to uh, um, expand your craft, really produce excellent, exceptional stories that are publishable, that can be marketed, and that will appeal to the audience. So, yeah, it is fierce competition, but that's what it is.
And is there kind of and again, I'm not asking to name names or anything, but if somebody's looking for a publisher in order to help them get published and obviously want to hire you as a writing coach to go through this, but is there anything they should be looking for when they're looking at perhaps choosing a publisher, or is it just, shotgun them all, kind of like a resume sort of?
No, no, no. They have to be very specific when and intentional when researching publishers, because the other risk is falling for those vanity presses that we call them. And if you do that, you might be in big trouble. Like, first of all, they charge huge amounts of money, thousands of dollars to produce a subpar product, and they don't market that. They don't care what happens with the book. They just charge you to quickly produce a book, and then you on your own to market. So that's how they make money off just authors who are kind of being naive and passionate about their work, so they pay to get that book published, but nothing happens, like, because they don't have distribution, they don't have marketing, they don't have channels for that book, and it's just they already made their money, so they really don't care what happens with the book, and you get stuck with a bad contract with those vanity presses. A lot of the times they actually like force the writers to buy thousands of copies of their own book. So that's additional money that you need to invest. And the product is not great at all. So all of these mistakes you could be making and falling hard for the wrong terms and with those vanity lists. So you have to stay away. So yeah, you either have to talk to people who know the industry, get advice, get guidance, or just be really just do your research. Do your research and find the traditional publishing houses. A lot of them, like the big ones, you can't even submit to them. They only accept submissions from agents. So you need to find an agent to represent you, and then they submit on your behalf. So that's for the big five houses, right? And they're all of their imprints. But there are some smaller, still legit houses that are small and medium sized that can help you and publish your book, and you can definitely build a career with those. You just have to be careful. Again, like I said, don't go for the vanity presses, and really look at their guidelines. If they're charging you money, they're not a legit publisher, because traditional publishers pay you an advance and then pay you royalties, and they take care of all the production of the book and marketing and distribution. They hire illustrators, they pay them, good money to illustrate the book, and also pay them royalties. So that's how traditional publishing works. If anything outside of that, it's not a traditional publisher. You're muted. I can't hear you.
I'll edit that out. So I just want to go back really quick for a second over that. I think you said something really important. I don't want it to get lost. So if we're looking to get a book published and we're looking online for a publisher, then most likely what we're going to get in a Google search result is a vanity publisher that is probably not the way that you want to go. Is that
Yes, that's correct. Those usually pop up first because they sponsored ads and they advertise their services. So people would like go for the first link or the second, and those are the vanity presses. From my experience, those are the first that pop up. So, and a lot of people fall for those, which is unfortunate because, yeah, you could be stuck with a really bad contract and not even be able to publish your next book and next book because of a bad contract. And sometimes people are impatient and they want their book and they would do anything to get, hold the book. But later, when you learn more, you just regret that decision and regret just jumping on it and rushing that. So, yeah, those are usually the ones that pop up. And so don't go for those. There are plenty of other legit, houses and smaller publishers that produce beautiful books and can support your career and have fair contracts and do pay you advances and all those things, but not the vanity presses. So someone who's not in this business and has no clue could make all kinds of big mistakes in that department too.
I thank you so much for sharing that for sure. I did want to go back over just to circle back just one last time to the AI, not specifically AI, but is it kind of the same when you look at ghostwriters too then, or is that different?
Well, that's not happening in picture books. So that could be adult books, ghost written, yes, but that doesn't apply to picture books like to children's books. At least I haven't heard of anything like that. So yeah.
Okay, $1 million business idea. If anybody wants to go do that, you heard it here first. It doesn't exist, so go make it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Don't. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Rosie. It's been a real delight. That had a lot of insight here. We are coming up pretty close to the time. Is there any question you feel I should have asked but didn't ask, or anything you feel we should have covered that we didn't cover today?
No, I just want to encourage everyone who's listening and thinking about writing their, children's book. I know there are a lot of people who wait for the time, and maybe when I retire, maybe when my kids are older, and have that story in their heart and want to try it. I would say let's just go for it, and the time is now. Don't wait. But definitely seek guidance and help. Don't try to figure out on your own. It took me 12 years to get my first book published traditionally. So it really takes a long time if you are not doing it the right way. So learn the craft, take classes, educate yourself, take my course, right? And it's proven that it works, and it's created for that reason. But go for it and go with the right intention and the right way, learning. And yeah, and any teachers and educators, I love for them to reach out and invite me to their school. I love doing school visits, always enjoy those. And I hope people will check out my new book. It's about an ambitious snake who wants to play a piano. So that's kind of challenging, but it's a fun story. And I think kids will like it. Definitely has a lot from my own experience too. People with big dreams and hearing that's impossible. So everyone who has a kid, I hope they check it out. Sally's Musical Tale. It's available for pre-order and it releases next month.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And not to worry for all our listeners, we are going to put that in the show notes for you so that you'll be able to find that easily, as well as links to Rosie to learn more about her and her works. Once again, Rosie, thank you so much for being on the show today. Absolute delight. To all our listeners, thank you once again for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, Chris. It was a pleasure.